Is Overwatch really doing that bad right now? Well, social media leads us to believe that this is the case. It feels like there's a new resignation post every other day about aspiring pro players quitting the game and content creators taking a break. Quite frankly, the sheer volume of public-facing Overwatch players leaving the game, whether temporary or not, is unprecedented. We had a similar mass exodus of Overwatch players around Season 10 with the Graf Dragon meta, and we again lost a lot of content creators to Fortnite when that started getting big. But this time around, something is different. The path to pro, or as it has been dubbed, the path to poverty, seems to have hit a place where it seems pointless for a lot of aspiring talent to further pursue it in light of the fact that, well, bills have to be paid and education is to be taken care of. The general consensus that Blizzard does not at all care about what you have to say if you are not part of the Overwatch League is stronger than ever. You are a popular content creator with a huge audience, who cares? A tier 2 or 3 player trying to give input on the current structure of competition? Try again when you get scouted, kid. Your everyday player trying to share their opinion? Who megalol? Blizzard seems completely and utterly tone deaf when it comes to any form of input, and they religiously take way too long to tackle very important problems. We are left with a dysfunctional game that is no longer fun to play, while they are trying to gather one thing and one thing only: data. But is that really the whole story? I don't believe so. Don't get me wrong, the acquisition of data plays a huge role in this, and I am of the opinion that Blizzard's obsession with data did and continues to hurt Overwatch. But there's more to it than we often give it credit to. First off, let's talk about the general consensus that the game is oh so terrible right now. People hate when I disagree with them, and they especially hate when I'm not as outraged about something as them, so let's talk about the facts here. The general Overwatch populace at no point in time has ever hated the game as much as the core community that is vocal on social media. And that part of our community, even though we are the loudest, only make for a small portion of the entire player base. If that was not the case, the game would have long stopped being profitable, and we can see that it still is. A few months ago, deep into the GOATS meta with no end in sight, I have made a poll on how people felt about the game in large. And let me reiterate here that at the time, GOATS was considered the worst meta trend in the history of this game. I made a whole video about me interviewing random teammates, scouting social media, and it all ended up with a poll on my own channel. If you missed the whole ordeal, you can find the code in the top right corner. Even at the time, the subset of players that very genuinely hated the game was tiny, and that was in light of the fact that content creators were tearing Overwatch a new one for not changing the meta, pro play being dictated by GOATs, and us not having any reason to believe that any of these things are gonna change anytime soon. I am highlighting this because I know that Blizzard somehow manages to one-up themselves time and time again. The current meta is considered so terrible that people are now longing for GOATs again. And you know what? That's what we said about the previous meta, and the meta before that, and then again the meta before that one. It's a never-ending cycle that fails to properly represent how our playbase actually feels about the game. In another video where I interviewed a heck of a lot of content creators about Overwatch, really that was just for fun and no serious discussion was meant to be derived from it, KarQ said something very, very interesting.
Keep doing you, I know they're listening, they are reading Reddit, I can confirm that. They read everything. Some concerns aren't heard or addressed because some of them are genuinely not as big of a deal as you think they are. They have the stats, they have the numbers.
Again, we are coming back to the whole topic of data. I know that there are a lot of caveats to the interviews and research I've conducted in an attempt to find out how players feel about Overwatch, but one thing that is constantly being suggested is the fact that no matter how much you and I hate the current meta, it never ever affects the player base to an extent that we suggest it does. Whether you want to believe any of these suggestions or not is obviously up to you. I'm not saying that I am definitely right in the matter because there are too many asterisks to consider. What I am saying is that you should take a good look at where these opinions come from. A lot of hate comes from players who are subjected to the meta in a way where they cannot possibly avoid it. Aspiring pro players, full-time streamers, YouTube content creators, high-ranked ladder players, and the like. A lot of hive mind mentalities are fostered in each respective community of single individuals who, due to circumstance, cannot possibly enjoy the game. A full-time streamer is obligated to play this game for 8 hours a day exposed to a live audience. Most of them are high-ranked players and their viewers are there to watch high-level gameplay. They are exposed to meta play, they are suffering long queue times, and because they wait so long to find the game, also having to play a match that is not fun, or somebody is griefing or not trying, all these things feel so much worse. It really is a matter of circumstance. There are very good reasons for why streamers are currently not enjoying Overwatch in large. Because because the experience for them and others who play the game for a very long time every day is simply different to literally the vast majority of our player base, something I explored in a video dedicated to that whole matter. But people often end up watching content creators for their personalities. They happen to agree with a lot of their opinions, and as such, the experience of one single streamer suddenly has an effect on thousands upon thousands of people who very often spend more time watching that streamer than actually playing the game. Or their gameplay experience is only rarely represented by what they see the streamer experience. Again, I, as much as everybody else, can only suggest these things, rather than trying to pinpoint a definitive truth. But I would really like you guys to put these things into consideration before you start spouting things like everybody hates Overwatch right now. So up until this point, it seems like I was very much on board with Blizzard's idea of data suggesting that things really are not as bad as we make them out to be. So why do I still believe that their obsession with data is hurting the game? That's because I am biased AF, and I will come back to that in a minute. Whenever developers look at something that is a very blatant problem to the core community and they reply with, "But my data," it feels like a slap in the face. Fortnite has done that with the mechs, and Overwatch has done that with many a balance patch as well. Because if you start to only consider data points, then you'll lose that connection to the community. If data suggests that, let's say, Sigma is not actually overpowered because his KDR or whatever is perfectly in line with their expectation, does that mean everything is fine? No, it doesn't, because his kid is annoying as hell. Data cannot represent how much fun we are having at the game. Whenever people are voicing their complaints, that's not them trying to kill the game. It's them wanting to play it, and they want it to be more fun again. It is my belief that a lot of data points are skewed in favor of things not being a problem because of the sheer amount of players that is going to eat up whatever they do anyway. Players who sit down and play the game a couple times a week. Players who don't care about meta and ranked play. Players who don't spend time on the forums and social media trying to voice their opinion. Players who, for all intents and purposes, probably make for an overwhelming majority in most multiplayer games out there. I know it is a blunt suggestion, but if most of your players eat up what you do anyway, and you don't see a massive drop in numbers whenever your core community tells you that your meta is horrible, then why not? Just fix it. Like, a lot of these things are very simple number changes, as opposed to hero reworks or anything like that. You can make your core players happy and get great PR from content creators for free while seeing no hit in numbers for casual players. Literally, just make a good competitive game. The problem is that, historically speaking, chances for that happening are tiny. I know this is a massive knock against Blizzard, but they have a track record of horrible balance in a variety of their games. World of Warcraft really is a great example in this case, where they made nonsensical changes to classes that did not at all need it. And part of Overwatch's development team, leading positions included, are made of developers who previously also worked on WoW. Looking at their data obsession and their balanced track record in Overwatch and World of Warcraft alone, I don't think that they made bad balance patches just because they were interpreting the data wrong, but because they are simply incapable of making a proper, competitively balanced game. And trust me, I wish they proved me wrong. It would be a first for me to hear that a Blizzard game is properly balanced. And heck, part of the reason might even be that they take pride in their casual appeal. Heroes of the Storm was a game made for players who want a lighter mobile experience without investing an hour a match and 700 hours to get the basics down. World of Warcraft at the time was also meant to be a more beginner-friendly MMORPG experience than their competitors. And Overwatch was designed around the idea of accessibility, giving us characters that are not aim-intensive so that we too can help our team without being FPS gods. Really, their whole shtick revolves around mass appeal, and it stands contrary to Activision trying to push each and every game into its own esports league. This would probably warrant a video on its own, but there might be a conflict of interest between Blizzard wanting to make fun games and Activision wanting to push everything as an ad-supported esport. And since all this is based on speculation anyway, you might as well take your pick. I think there's solid evidence to suggest that any of these things could be the culprit, whether it is data obsession, incompetence, a conflict of interest, or the Overwatch League. There are really just a few things we know for sure. We know that competitive balance patches are bound to the league schedule as to not mess with the competition too much. We know their historical precedent for balance patches in the past decade, and we know that they keep referencing data collection as the reason for why we don't see more frequent numerical changes to heroes that, in the outer community, are obviously busted. Just know that, as I've already implied, and as you should always assume, I am biased in the same way that everybody else is biased. As a content creator, it is in my best interest for them to make the game fun for players like me who would love myself to spend 8 hours a day playing it. And I'm very much trying to look out for my colleagues over on Twitch here who, unlike me, don't have the luxury of being able to stop playing whenever they get frustrated. More frequent patches would also potentially make for more fodder to make videos, so that's also something that would motivate my opinion. While I disagree with the notion that everybody universally hates the game, and I'm tired of the meme where everybody calls every meta the worst meta in the history of Overwatch, I do think that they should take a good look at the heroes that make the game unfun, as opposed to looking at heroes that make it unbalanced. You won't ever achieve perfect balance in a game like Overwatch, but if it's still fun, players are more willing to forgive the lack thereof. Honestly, if you are Blizzard, you gotta have some level of self-awareness. You look at how long it takes to gather data to finally make a decision on what to change, and then look at how those changes have actually affected the game and realize, you know what, if it takes us this long to do something that makes everything worse anyway, we might as well start doing more hotfixes until we get it right. And I'm talking small numerical changes. Make an ability weaker here, increase the cooldown there, stuff like that. As opposed to doing exactly this, but then wait the 3-week PTR cycle to put it on live just to realize that was not enough, and then going through the whole process again. It just takes way too long. Now I do realize that there are a few things in the way of that idea. Them trying to keep the Overwatch League and the live game on the same patch, as well as needing approval from Sony and Microsoft before being allowed to put their patches live on console, and now the Switch being added to that as well. Quality control is a thing and the approval process takes a while. But still, considering the impact that a bad bounce patch has on the core community, it really just makes us feel like you don't care. And I just don't want to believe that this is true. I hope that today's video sparked the urge for discussion, and as always, you are more than welcome to hold that discussion down in the comment section below. There are a lot of different perspectives to consider, and I tried to make sure that I covered most of them for all of you to form your own opinion. I want to thank you everybody so much for watching. Don't forget to drop me a like on your way out if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and I hope to see you guys next time.